Hello, happy National Book Lovers Day. I'm still have the same energy. Well, not exactly the same. Look, I had to take the glasses off because my eyes are just like, ooh, I was trying to read those scriptures and they was like doubling over. But I am so excited. We're on our National Book Lovers Day Christian Author Marathon. And thank you for tuning in. It is August 9th and it is truly National Book Lovers Day. If you Google it, it truly does say an unofficial holiday, National Book Lovers Day. And we're so excited. This is Christian Authors on Tour inaugural celebration. And we're hoping to make this an annual event for our organization. And so you are making history with us. And so we really appreciate you tuning in. This particular session, we are excited about the author that's going to speak. Just to give you a heads up, it is 7 o'clock. We have been going strong since 8 a.m. We have been sharing information and updates about Christian Authors on Tour. You've had an opportunity to meet many of our authors in these 30-minute segments where they're talking about their books, they're talking about what inspires them to write, and they're talking about their favorite books of the Bible. And then we've also had some opportunities to do some 30-minute Bible study chats. And so want to encourage you, if you weren't able to watch those earlier sessions, you can go to YouTube. Give us about 2 weeks from this date of August 9th. You will be able to go to YouTube and do a Google search of Christian Authors on Tour, National Book Lovers Day, Author Marathon, and you can also type in the author's name and the video will pop up. I'm really excited. Today, we have, this man of God. He's going to talk to you about an issue that is so prominent in our community. And I love when I have the opportunity to discuss and talk with authors who are writing about what I call issues of the day, issues that really hit home. They really focus on many of the social, economic, and racial justice issues that are impacting our lives as people, as human beings, as mothers, fathers, as Christians, as educators. And sometimes we don't always have these important conversations. So I want to introduce you to Dwight E. DeRamus Jr. And as you can see here, his book is called Disappearing Dads. And you see this picture, when I first saw this book cover, it just kind of gave me chills because you see this father and this child walking together. And you can see the child in the black silhouette, but you see the dad and he's almost like the title, disappearing, And so Dwight, I want you to talk to us about the title of this book and reason why you decided to write this book at this time. And then tell us a little bit about who you are as an author.
Okay, the title Disappearing Dads, it sort of birthed to me when I was 6 years old. I'm from the Chicago South Side, and my family, we moved into a brand new house. And the day that we moved in, my father passed away at the age of 24. And that started, my journey leading up to Disappearing Dads, not knowing that I would eventually write the book. Now, after my father passed when I was 6 years old, the first 18 years of my life, I lived in 3 different types of households. I started off with a 2-parent household. Then I moved into a blended household with a stepfather, and the stepfather had a son. And then after that, it was a single parent household. So I lived in 3 different types of households in the first 18 years of my life. I was close to my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, my father's mother, and I took care of her in her latter years. She passed away on March 16th of 2011. But when I used to go visit her, every single week I go see her, she always encouraged me. She said, Dwight, you need to write a book. I'm like, Grandma, I don't want to write a book. And she said, no, you need to write an autobiography. I said, Grandma, famous people write an autobiography. But she always kept that seed was always playing in my head to write a book. And eventually, this is my first book, and sorry for the color, but this is my first book called A Slice of Truth. It was dedicated to her. She gave me the inspiration to write the book. It's a poetry book. It's my first book. It came out August of 2010. But then 6 years later, of course, Disappearing Dads is the current book that I am promoting, and I'm currently working on the third as we speak. So we start off with the death of my father, as well as my grandmother was encouraging me over the years to write a book, and that's how the title came up, along with the job that I do. I'm a teacher, and every year, matter of fact, let me go back. I'm a teacher for 22 years. And what I noticed when I first started teaching is that each and every year, my students, when I look up their student information, they'll say mother, and has her name and information, and they'll say father blank. Look up another student, mother, name, information, where she works, father blank. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it seems to be a pattern, and it started in the late 90s where half of my students have both parents on there. And now 20 years later, it's like at least 3/4 of my students have just mom's information and no dad's information at all. So that's pretty much why the title.
Wow. You talk about how time changes things, that's a pretty significant change over time, right?
Absolutely. One of the things that, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but okay, we just had our census, and this is 2020, so we just had our census. Our last census, 2010, it is noted that for the first time in the history of the United States, that there are more single people than married people. And it started in the last census. So you can imagine, because it usually census and information of the census usually takes about 2 years after they collect all the data that they need to try to redistribute it, monies and things of that sort, that what the census does. The information regarding families, that's going to be probably given out between late 2021 or 2022. And I'm sure that demographics regarding nuclear families is even worse as we speak.
I did not know that, so thank you for sharing that. That
Yeah.
is, yeah, yeah. And what do you think? What do you think is the impetus for that?
Boy, it's a lot of things. I mean, it's not really like one. You can't just pigeonhole one particular thing, but I do know that the root cause of everything is sin. Sin is the root cause, and I said that throughout the book, that sin is the root cause. Once we got single families, and it seems like the cycle repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And I was going to just be able to outline, some of the things within each of my chapters. For example, the very first chapter is Family Affair. It's called Family Affair. And in that first chapter, Family Affair, it talks about the 4 Ds on why fathers are not in home. We got death, which happened to me. We got divorce, we got detachment, and we got desertion. And those are the 4 Ds on why fathers are not in home. Then when we move on to the next chapter called Lost Boys, in Lost Boys, our juvenile detention centers, our prisons, and special education, which is what I do for a living. I'm involved in special education. Either I'm a administrator or I'm a teacher in the special education field with boys. One of the things, as a matter of fact, I had classes almost every year where I had all boys, or I had 1 or 2 girls within my class of 10 to 13 students. That's where we can find most of our boys. Within that chapter, Lost Boys also discusses that without fathers, young men are most likely taught not to commit in relationships with women, and they leave a trail of broken hearts and babies. And also, they are prime targets of gang recruitment. The following chapter is called Girls Gone Wild. And beginning of the chapter talks about the first interaction of every daughter is supposed to be her father. But if he's not present, then who? Who's going to step up? Who's going to be in that place? Boyfriend, uncle, grandfather? None at all. The first interaction of every daughter coming to this world, every son as well, is supposed to be the father. But if he's not there, then there's a problem there. Also stated within that chapter of Girls Gone Wild that without fathers, young girls are most likely taught to have trust issues with men and repeat the same cycle of their mothers by raising their children alone. Their hearts and bodies lack the covering from their fathers, because fathers, they're supposed to protect their hearts and bodies. Um, Also, that fathers are encouraged to be a leader and lead her until she is given away at her wedding to her groom, so that he can assume that responsibility that the father is supposed to be doing prior to him giving her away at the wedding. The following chapter from that is called Media Influence. Now, media influence is a chapter that examines how fathers are portrayed on the electronic screen. They're often characterized as bumbling idiots, clueless Neanderthals, in which mom has all the answers and she saves the day. Their common themes in programming often show that single moms looking for love or couples living together before marriage. We rarely see programs where there are both mothers and fathers married and at home. We rarely find those type of programs. Okay. The next chapter is called Impact the Community. Impact the Community chapter examines how zip codes determine income level of families and the attraction of high and low end businesses in our communities. It draws attention how every poverty stricken area in major cities across the country, and I know you got sections in Baltimore that you know, we definitely got sections here in Chicago, I can tell you that right now, that is headed by homes without fathers. Also, I also discussed in that chapter how governmental agencies is $1 billion business for breaking up families. Your divorce courts, your child support courts, your alimony, in which 85% of the time, the decision is awarded to mothers and they keep the possessions, they keep the children. 85% of the time, that is ruled in the court system. The next chapter is Do Ye Church. Do Ye Church is a chapter that addresses the spiritual foundation of families, where there's a difference when fathers bring or don't bring their families to worship services. Also discussed in that chapter is how churches are filled with widows, mothers, and children. And usually after the age of 18, young people, they go away to college and they go away to college for a while and they do not come back to the church. They just don't, many of them, majority of them, they don't return. It also addresses, the chapter also addresses why there are a low number of fathers in churches. And my last chapter is called Final Thoughts. It summarizes the previous chapters in the book with detailed synopsis. It offers suggested solutions to problems that affect all communities across this country. And again, Disappearing Dads has stressed over and over again throughout the book that there's dysfunction in all families and sin is the root cause. And that's pretty much the layout of Disappearing Dads.
Wow, wow. I wondered, I'm glad you mentioned that last chapter gives a summary and then also talks about some of the solutions, because that was going to actually be my next question to you. Can you hit on, you laid out the problem, and you did it in a very thorough way. Can you talk about some of the solutions that can help remedy the problem?
Well, the church must play a big part. We got to reach, first of all, we got to reach our children before the age of 18 and try to pull them in so that once they leave and go away to their post-secondary, whatever they decide to do, whether it's working or whatever the case may be, that they come back because they need that spiritual foundation. And that's the key, is we got to start with our children, because the world is going after them and we got to combat that. They're going after them with different types of curriculum. They're going after them with different types of commercials. They're going after them with different types of TV programming. The children are the targets. The church also, we have to be in that fight. So we have to start with our children.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I believe that, like the famous song, The Children Are Our Future, but I also believe that we have to also strengthen families. And in order to strengthen families, if you provide the resources to the children, you have to find a way to provide the resources to the parents too. And that's been my drive as an adult educator. I teach GED classes for adults. I teach at a prison here in Maryland via one of the community colleges. I teach in the heart of Baltimore via another community college. And my church, with the asking and the backing of my pastor, it was his vision to start a GED program at our church. And so we have a Saturday GED program that we run at the church. And for us, we see that as part of the solution too, because you often have a lot of focus, at least here in Baltimore, from the city government on youth development and, youth jobs and different things of that sort. But you don't always have a plethora of services and opportunities. I mean, you have your substance abuse programs, you have some mental health programs, but if you don't have a substance abuse program and you don't have a mental health program, but you're still struggling, it's like you're just out, and so,
Right, absolutely.
more programs, by churches that provide some additional services and supports to adults, because I truly believe that that's part of the solution too.
Right, right. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's just, I guess, because, and I've also taught adult education back in the dark ages. So I know what you do. I know
Yeah.
what you do. I've done that in the 90s, but I know what you do. I know it's just that, just like you said, our children is our future. And I don't know if you notice, but they are being targeted,
Yeah.
specifically, strategically targeted. They're going after them, and again with the curriculums that's going in and everything, they are specifically going after them. We have to go after them as well.
Yes, yes. And I'm sure some of our viewers might have some comments or questions. So this is the time for you. Just remember to unmute yourselves and go ahead and ask any questions or share any comments that you might have, or even your own experience.
Actually, before the questions, I wanted to acknowledge one of my friends is on, Gina Gatson, and she is a children's author. She writes children's books.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, so it's one of those things when I said that they're going after our children, she's writing content on trying to streamline it and try to keep our children, as opposed to keep them going astray from the world and everything. So I applaud her every time she comes out with a book.
Yes, and that's so needed. Oh my goodness. We talk about, the power, and this is National Book Lovers Day, and we talk about the power of Christian books. It's not just for adults, but for the children, the little readers, we need to make sure that they're getting a full understanding. And you're right, Dwight, they are targeted, even via the media,
Mm-hmm.
You look at some of the shows that are supposed to be children-friendly shows, it has me scratching my head sometimes because I'm like, ooh,
Yeah, it's a little bit different, yeah.
So yeah. Did anybody else want to share or ask a question?
Hi, good evening. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I supported you as you supported me earlier, and I really have enjoyed what you said about your book. It's funny, I just attended a Bible study, and he was talking about the fathers in the home and the fathers that are not in the home. So it was kind of like you kind of reiterated some of the same things that he was saying, but you're absolutely right as how the trend has become, when it's more and more single mothers. And I think that it kind of stems to the fact that it's from a woman's standpoint, is that we are not teaching our kids, and we weren't taught in some ways that we need to, first of all, wait for the man to look for us, as the Bible says, number one. And number two, even if we do meet men and happen to meet someone that we believe could be our mate or our soulmate or our husband, there are certain criteria that we should be looking for, so that it won't be I know there's no sure thing, but at least we'll have a good idea that he won't be a disappearing, father. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it is part of their upbringing. If we look at their upbringing, we look at their family, you already have the answers when you see that. And a lot of times we ignore it because we're so in love or so infatuated or so whatever we are, and we don't pay attention to those things.
Yeah, if I didn't know any better, I think he'd been in my notes on my the third book I'm working on. The book I'm working on, I'm not giving away the title, but the book I'm working on is How to Choose a Wife. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, she's like been in my notes or something. But that's good though. That is good. That is good. I like that. You know what? And I apologize. I guess I get a chance to talk a little bit. Let me share just a little bit about at least my personal background. I served as a husband for 24 years. I am a father of 2 sons, ages 23 and 18, and born and raised in Chicago, Chicago South Side. And I'm in the field of education. Been either a dean of students, a special education department chair, or special education teacher. So that's pretty much my background right there.
Awesome. We've had a lot of educators today talking on the different segments, and it's interesting to see how God uses your skill in the workplace to be able to now use that in the ministry and really be able to impact lives in that way. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that. How do you balance, your call as a writer, which is a ministry, with the work that you're doing with the young people and finding the right balance to be able to make that impact?
Well, there's a scripture, I want to say in Luke, where it says, too much is given, much is required. One of the things I do in my church, if I didn't say, I serve as a deacon, and I am the Sunday school superintendent. So it's a lot of teaching that I do, and I'm whole doubly responsible, making sure that I be carefully outline the Word of God on one aspect, and also use it in my writing, as well as to serve the young people at my 9-to-5 job on the other hand. So it's that careful balance that I have to do all the time, knowing that I'm doubly responsible with that. And I want to make sure that I am inclusive as far as the needs of the children, because as a teacher, we do work for the state. So that is a balance, again, trying to make sure that I don't impose my beliefs on them, but I want to make sure I keep focused on the job that I have to do as opposed to my beliefs. I'd let my actions and my behavior to show my beliefs as opposed to me telling my beliefs. And that's the way that I balance.
That's a very good point, is that a lot of times we can show more about ourselves, about what we do, and not by what we say we're going to do or anything like that. And, our presence, our personalities, all of those things will speak louder than anything, else that we say.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I want you to give your contact information, and folks want to purchase the book. If they want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Okay, well, I purposely made sure that you can see my background.
Yes.
Okay, so you see my website there, TreyNicoPub.com, www.treynicopub.com. My email is also in the background, treynickelpublishing@gmail.com. Not only I'm an author, but I also am a publisher as well. So I have clients who I've helped wrote books as well. And my client for last year, we did this for him. It's called The Bullying Phenomenon. It's an activity workbook on bullying, and it's by Dr. Dwayne Ruffin. And we did this about this time last year. So if you or anyone else you know who's planning on or want to write a book, we can do this for you. And this is an excellent book. It's a workbook. It's an author, everything. So this is, and it's my company right there, Trey Nickel Publishing right there. So we can do that as well. I can be reached at 708-858-1161. 708 858-1161.
What's your favorite book of the Bible?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me see. I had to eliminate Proverbs. I had to put Proverbs. I got Proverbs, I got James, and I got Romans, like right near the top. But there's one book of the Bible that's sort of eked out, and I'm going with the book of John. And I'm going to tell you why. The book of John has 3 powerful verses in any other verses in the Bible. John 3:16. It is the why we read the Bible in the first place. It is the synoptic. It is not considered one of the synoptic gospels of the 4. It might think it doesn't parallel with the other 3. It starts off in eternity, John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's the second powerful verse in the book of John. Yeah. And the third one is why we are hated so much as Christians. How other religions hate us because of John 14:6. Yeah. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Those 3 verses alone puts John just a little bit ahead to me of Proverbs, Romans, and James. So I got to go with the book of John.
So we're ready to close out. Does anybody have any last comments before we close?
Yes, I would just like to say that I really enjoy working with you, Dwight. We've been in a lot of events together. We've done a lot of networking together in the last 2 years. And I have, like I said, several copies of your book that I have gifted to young men. And I think that it makes a great impact. I did have a quick question though. How does the church, how do they reply to your book? You know, do they accept it with open arms?
Mixed. It's mixed because the guys don't like it, but it's the truth, and it seems like for those of you who, I assume that we all go to church at one point, if you notice that the programs, everything, it does not really cater to the guys. You got praise dances, that does not cater to the guys unless he has a daughter that's part of the praise dance. It's catered to the daughters and catered to the mothers. It's not catered to the guys. The songs that they sing, it's not catered to the guys. And I talked about that on that chapter, Do Ye Church. But to answer your question, it seems to be like a mixed bag.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Ooh, wow, this has been a rich conversation. I want to thank you, Dwight. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for tuning in to the National Book Lovers Day Author Marathon. We are pulling around to the last half an hour, last hour. Boy, we've had a phenomenal day and just want to thank all of you for tuning in. You've been at multiple sessions. And this is what today was all about. It was an opportunity for us to really go hard hard and really celebrate Christian books. And that's exactly what we've been doing. And so if you want more information about Christian Authors on Tour, you can visit us online at www.christianauthorsontour.com. If you want to head on over to the next session, you can find the link at the Christian Authors on Tour Facebook group page. Until then, I'll see you all later. Bye. Thanks for tuning in.